Good morning all and welcome to the meeting. I know we're just waiting for Lady Wilcox to join us, but I thought we could get through the admin bit at the start and then that will go straight into the papers. So first of all, thank you for the bundle that's been sent through. Lots of papers for decision today, which I think is really positive, and some clearly a lot of work done by officers across the service. So just first of all, we've got no apologies for absence, and thank you for those that are joining us online. Everybody here is okay? There again, as my wife says, I don't often need a loud hailer. They can hear me wherever I am. So thank you for all joining us. So declarations of interest first of all. Kirsty, we've got yours for the Health Board.
Thank you.
There is one for the alignment of the, I don't know if it's in your notes, Chair, but the alignment of the annual leave for, I think, most members of the LT in this room are affected by the paper, including the school's author, Liam, who didn't realise at the time he was doing the project that he would be affected. So, yeah, everybody collectively has a declaration for that.
Okay, so there is a conflict there, but we recognise it's about trying to get to the right point and the most ethically sound point. I think we recognise that as commissioners. Vidge, happy with that? Yep. Okay. Nothing else at all around conflicts of interest? Anybody wants to declare? No, thank you very much.
Sorry, I don't think it is a declaration of interest, but obviously Alison is affected by the recruitment director of people and organisational development. But
if she applies, we'll go for a conflict. If she does,
so I think we're
and that was timely, really. And I'm going to say it because I'm not going to be here. But Alison, I know you're going to go through lots of other meetings. You can have lots of other people, including the chief, that are saying things. But for me personally, and I think speaking for the commissioners and everybody around the room, your loss will be massive to the organisation. But I also know that you could have gone a lot earlier, and you've stayed on to see the transition through. And for that, we personally, I think, would be eternally grateful. And for the future, really excited about what you're going to. And thank you for all the support. Thank you for all the advice, the help, the counsel that you've given me, and I think all the other commissioners. So I know you've got a while to go yet, but it's my last meeting, so I get to that today.
Thank you so much.
So, thank you.
There was lots of clapping on the screen then, if anyone missed it.
Okay, and just for awareness, I'm going to make a decision to move one of the papers. I've spoken to officers in the room, so we're going to move the fire control paper. So it sits at the end of the paper, so it butts the close and open session together. So if I start bimbling through that paper, please somebody stop me, because I've got memory of the SIP. Thank you very much. So just going through the minutes of the last meetings, and if we take action, sorry, Chief.
May I interrupt you, Carl?
Okay.
Because it will be odd for the chair to thank the chair for their service, but this is your last meeting, and I would just like to say before the meeting opens, thank you very much for everything that you've done. South Wales Fire and Rescue Service over the last 2 years, an exceptional performance. The support that you've given us has been phenomenal. And I'd like to say thank you on behalf of the service.
Thank you, Chief. And bear in mind, I'm an ex-cop, so you're going to keep the dog shot. I think it has been a fantastic journey for the last 2.5 years for me. It really has. I've learned so much around another sector I never got the chance to really get involved with in my previous career. And when I look about where the service was then, and we had lots of good people, but probably not the right direction to where we are now, when we've got lots of good people and a real clear direction. I am really positive for the future of this service. Forget all the niff, naff, and trivia that bimbles around in the external world. The focus that you are bringing and the teams that you support are bringing, the people that we've got will mean this service gets to be the very best it possibly can be. So I'm really excited for the future. It has been a great experience working with you all, and I'm very, very grateful. So thank you for that. Even if you do all take the mickey out of my little car. So thank you. Thank you. So, right, moving on to the main agenda items then. So actions, Amanda, should we take those as we go along, or should we take them as entirety at the end? I think we take at the end of the papers. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So go through the minutes first of all then. So if we start on page 5, which is the minutes of the Board of Commissioners, page 6, page 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. Okay, no objections to those, so we'll sign those off. So if we move on to the actions that are outstanding, so the first action closed. The second one, which is the independent review. Now, I think this has moved on from the updates in there, Alison.
Yeah, it has. Thank you, Chair. So we have gone out with the new head of OD. So we're moving forward with the recruitment, and we're moving forward in terms of taking a project management approach to implementing the structure and working with CMC, because I have a few days left to help us shape the processes within the directorate. So it has moved forward, and as the action says, we will feed updates into People Committee.
So People Committee, Vig will be oversee the kind of direction of travel going forward then. So I think unless anybody's got any objections, that action can be closed, and we'll put it into People Committee for the governance oversight with updates through to the Board of Commissioners of significant milestones are there.
Yeah.
Is that happy with that? Fabulous. Thank you. Thank you all. Fabulous. I don't think there's any other outstanding actions. I think they're all closed, which is great. So thank you very much for that. Chief, over to you.
Thanks very much, Carl. Look, we've got an awful lot to get through today, so I will dip into a few bits and pieces. There is a written report there for people to review as required. The headline is that we are getting inspected in January at the moment, or possibly a bit later on. But this is under the new Welsh inspection model. They will be examining themes that HMI CFRS has in its inspection routine, but they'll be examining on a yearly basis, and they will be doing deep dives into specific ones each time. I've asked the DCFO to build a plan to ensure the service is ready for this inspection, and we were discussing that only yesterday indeed. Operational stuff. A lot has gone on since the last Board of Commissioners, so I'll highlight some of them. Ship fires. We had a major ship fire in Newport Dock. That resulted in us certainly securing a ship, putting a fire out on a ship, making sure that ship didn't go down. The consequence of that would have been enormous. That would have been Newport Dock basically blocked. So really pleased with that response. And it was a multi-agency response, and also the drone was particularly useful in that, in directing, well, first of all, finding the seat of the fire, looking through dense smoke, which the visual eye can't see, and directing jets from various different agencies, so ship's company, the tugs that were from the port, and also our own stuff onto that fire. Subsurface rescue. This is something that is not covered in national operating guidance. We had an incident at which some of the crews attended. An individual had gone underwater, was underwater for 32 minutes. They decided to use operational discretion, remove their flotation devices, and go underwater. That is not in operating guidance. Save the individual, and that individual is alive. Very cold water. We are now considering a case about whether we should provide some sort of training for situations like that, because it's a reasonably foreseeable event. Right? And I've been discussing that with Dan Stevens. Hot weather. It has been extremely hot. We've seen the number of deaths that have increased across the nation, and we of course have been impacted by this. Out on our stations, it's been enormously hot, and I've asked the deputy chief to look at adapting South Wales Fire and Rescue Service to climate change. We need to think about our clothing. We need to think about our stations and how we keep our crews cool, but make sure they don't have heat shock going from cold to hot and things like that. It's a really serious piece of work that we need to do. Aligned with that, and not in this report, is that because this had to be ready for translation, etc., is wildfire. We've had a very significant wildfire up on Blaenavon, with other wildfires going on as well. And I'd just like to acknowledge the amazing work by leaders in the organisation and firefighters out on the ground who have demonstrated incredible resilience, bravery, and also innovative approaches to get that Blaenavon fire under control. I was up there yesterday. They've dug big fire breaks around it. It is still burning. It will probably burn for a number of days yet. The last one that was that big up there burned until November. So it's a really significant event. In the background, I've been working with partners from National Resource Wales and the other fire and rescue services. And this morning you have got an email in your commissioners' accounts in which we've worked together. We built a proposition for the Welsh Government, and it's in with the Welsh Government now to the ministers. We also, I heard last night, we've got the First Minister and two other ministers coming up to Blaenavon to do a visit there, and we'll show them our abilities, capabilities, and also we'll show them the challenges of this. The report that you've got is about aerial firefighting. Okay. Prevention and protection, we've made some real progress in prevention and protection. Not in this report is the fact that we've had an HMI report back from their visit that was released 2-3 days ago. I'm really pleased with that report. It shows it was much earlier than HMI would normally come in, and I'm really pleased because in a short period of time they have acknowledged the hard work that members of the service have put in to get us into a position where we have the sound foundations for closing down those and the strategies for closing down those causes of concern. We've had a number of recommendations closed down, which is really pleasing. And also, since they've come, we've done an incredible amount of work because that's a number of weeks since they left us. And particularly in the prevention and protection work, there's been a very rapid increase in the inspections that we've been doing, particularly the high risk inspections, which is up in the region of about 300%. Correct me if I'm wrong there, Matt. Okay. I'll skip through to Venezuela earthquake. We have a team from ISO that deployed to Venezuela. That was a quite phenomenal response that they put in there. They deployed very rapidly. And I'd like to thank them for their resilience. From their accounts, it was actually quite a traumatic thing for them to be at, and they certainly delivered great capability to the International Search and Rescue Team and, of course, Venezuela. I also have, and again, not in this, I've just received a letter from the Ministry of Housing, Communities and Local Government about the 9th convoy and South Wales Fire and Rescue Services contribution to that. I'd just like to highlight, of course, Welsh Government paid for those appliances to go, and they've written me with a list of names of people they'd like to thank, and I would like to thank them on behalf of the service. DICE training, have we got an update?
So we were at 35% at the end of June. They pull the stats off at the end of each month. So I've just asked them if they can feed those figures through for today.
Okay.
It's the last working day of the month today.
Yeah,
today. So
if we do get those, we can add them to the minutes.
yes,
Okay.
Yeah. And we've had a surge on that with a request for people to crack on and do that. And then the last one I'm going to highlight is the strategy and operating model, and particularly I think Charles is, or certainly was on the line there. Hello, Charles. We had some really positive discussions with Charles and his team from All in Wales, and one of the things that they had identified is that there's a bit of confusion because we've got the SIP and we've got the strategy document. What we're doing now is we're blending those into one. We've taken Charles and his team's advice online. And the plan there is to have a very, very clear bit of direction. We've also done some really positive work that we'll brief you on separately about the target operating model and the way we're going to drive strategy forward in the service. And that was me complete.
Thank you, Chief. Really, really helpful. So, questions, just thoughts of Chief?
So it's a sort of comment. There's a sort of question slightly if I do. First of all, thank you very much for your report. Clearly, there's operational tempo is heightened here across the country, and I think we're going to need to think about reframing what our operational requirement is going forward, but that's part of a much wider conversation. I'm just slightly concerned, not with your report, but the inspection regime that is coming forward. The advisor inspector spoke to us the other day and talked about 3 pillars, of which we're going to do 1 pillar in 1 year, 1 pillar in the second year, 1 pillar in the third year. But that he was going to draw elements out of the second pillar into the first year inspection, which is, I think, an unnecessary conflation of inspections. But it does also mean, does it not, that we are going to end up in constant inspection for forever and a day, which, on the basis that they're trying to copy the HMI approach in England, is at odds with it because it's periodic as opposed to constant. I just wondered what your view was on that.
I concur, and I have brought this up with the Lord Fire Advisor. So we will be in a constant state of inspection.
Correct.
One of the things about inspections, you actually do need some time to implement the recommendations from the last one, and they do take time. My concern at the moment is that we have been given 3 causes of concern, and that is our priority to work on. We will now be inspected on something else, which we've already been inspected on within the last 2 years. So we are now heading off with some really serious work. My concern is that we'll receive a lot of other recommendations that will divert us from what HMI CFRS have said. This is where you as a service really need to work.
And it'll be difficult to try and, which is the most serious cause of concern? Is it the concern from this one or that one or the other one? Yeah, it's something that we have to work through.
So we just for your, in fact, you're aware of this. We have received a letter. We've been asked to comment on those points, and I think this is a juncture at which those points should be made.
Yeah, so I think, thank you, Vij. I think, Chief, I think you're absolutely right, and I've discussed it with Adam yesterday. I think Lady Wilcox kindly has prepared a letter to go back to point for some of those points, and I think that covers all the points that were going to be made there. I think there is something, Charles, for Audit Wales as well to kind of, that we can feed into you, because, how that works together with the audit world as well, because there is that bit of crossover of different pieces. And Charles, I'll bring you in now.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, just to say the Auditor General has been invited and intends to respond to Dan's letter as well, to set out her views in terms of the proposal on the regime. Obviously, it wouldn't be appropriate for me to go into that at this juncture, but just to say she will be intending to comment on how the proposal interacts with her legislative duties, etc. So I imagine if the Welsh Government publish the response as they usually do with consultations, you'll see that in due course. But just to assure you that we are intending to respond to that as well.
Thank you, Charles. That's really helpful. So I'll bring in Kirsty and then Lady Wilcox.
Thank you very much, Carl, and thank you to Debbie for the draft of the letter that she has written. I fully endorse the sentiments within the letter. We've already talked about, haven't we, the potential for confusion and for setting too many priorities. We know sometimes the service has struggled with prioritization, and the service is getting much better at that. This potentially gets us back to a stage where we're asking people to do lots of different things, and the danger of that is that we do a lot of things not as well as we should, as opposed to doing a few things really, really well and working through a list of priorities. And I also am concerned about the psychological impact of being under a regime of constant inspection. That's really, really tough for our staff and for the organisation. It doesn't necessarily give people the headspace to do the job, but I am worried about the psychological impact and potentially what that will mean for staff's well-being. The inspection regime is really, really important, but it should be the last stage of assurance. Assurance starts with us within the service and individual accountability and performance. It is then for the Board of Commissioners and subsequently the new Fire Authority. So that I just worry that we are entering into a period of disproportionate assurance, which will be detrimental to the service rather than helping the service, which is what inspection should be about.
Thank you, Kirsty. You couldn't agree more. Lady Wilcox.
Thank you. Firstly, my apologies. Through some technical difficulties, I was late this morning, so I do apologise. Thanks to colleagues for their kind comments. I did have some time. Now Parliament is in recess. I do have more time, so I was so concerned about the letter that's come through from the fire inspector, fire advisor, whatever. I just felt moved to look at the comments that had been discussed by us already and just collate something as a starting point, because I feel it's really important we get back as soon as possible. And I see this first intervention as a first intervention. I don't think this is going to go away very quickly, but for all the points that have just been expressed by Kirsty, I absolutely agree with everything. And having worked in an environment as a teacher for 35 years, the first proper inspection started in 1992, and the school I taught in Newport then was the second school in the UK to have this full inspection. And for the next 25 years, it was just constant. But you need a period of reflection. You need a period where you can gather your thoughts, where you can put into practice the stuff you need to and move forward, so that the next time it comes round, you have had the opportunity to make those improvements. But the way this is looking at the moment, there isn't any breathing space, and that's unfair and impossible to implement in a meaningful way. So I see this letter as stage one, and I'm well up for a continuation of trying to deal with this situation, which is not going to improve. And that's what inspection should be about, improvement. Diolch.
Thank you, Debbie. Really powerfully put there. So I think Mia is just finishing drafting the letter for us at the moment, putting in the format. I think we'll share it with the ELT more broadly, just to make sure that we've got the context. There might be bits that we missed, and then we'll look to get that in. But I do think, as Lady Wilcox said, this is probably just the first broadside in what will be a continuing discussion with both the fire advisor, but also actually Welsh Government, because they do need to understand the consequences, especially with the timeline of what this is initially envisaged.
If I may, Chair, I would just like to underline the fundamental importance of being inspected. So any comments that we have, I am, and I know that all my staff are, very, very up for being inspected. One of my biggest concerns about this is that HMI have a holistic approach to looking at the service. And I think that taking things in single themes actually runs, because all of those things are actually interlinked, and that's one of the things. The other point is, of course, we have been inspected within an inch of our lives in the last 2 years, and we are the first in line to go again, and that doesn't seem quite right to me.
No, absolutely agree, and I know Mike loves the inspections. You know, he often talks to me about it and actually how he enjoys it. But there is a point, isn't it, really, of timing, even when the inspection. But I think we made a point in the letter that actually we invited HMIC RSN as an organisation the first time it's ever been done in Wales. Yeah. So it's not as if we're scared of inspection. No question for me, but just a couple of points really around the report, which I think is really helpful. The subservice, I think, was really interesting, an interesting capability gap across it. Royal Humane Society Award recognition, would we think about those firefighters potentially? Yeah, okay, I'll leave that one as it is. Certainly the heat stuff, really interesting. My other hat on around sport and what they're doing around heat stuff, there's probably some learning there around some of the stuff that they're doing around some of their long distance stuff that Adam and others might want to think about around some of the kit that they're starting to roll out for some of the athletes that after the weekend when I was doing some of that. And I absolutely agree. I think the progress around HMIC is really, really positive, and thank you for all the work around that, and really good. Final point, operational learning. What a great success, and the team should be very proud of what they're achieving in that. So so thank you for the report, it's really, really helpful. Thank you. Moving on then. So transition to the new Fire and Rescue Authority. It's as if we've been talking about this for some while, Amanda.
Yes, Chair. So we're moving into the AGM part of the agenda. So I've got two papers for you. The first one is the, as you say, the transition paper. I hope by now that we would be in a position to present more of this to you, but actually we are where we are. So this paper is asking you to note a number of things. And so I'll just run through those recommendations first before I fill in some of the detail. So obviously note the very recent announcement by the Welsh Government on the transition from commissioners to a new fire rescue authority. That is now going to happen in May next year, following the local elections. Note that I have already received a number of member nominations, 9 of the 10 from our unitary authorities, and that's Appendix 1. Note the governance arrangements for you as commissioners continuing. You've been extended until for the rest of this municipal year until May next year. Approved terms of reference for a new continuous improvement board, and I'll explain that in a moment. That's for Appendix 2, and to note our internal governance arrangements set out for Appendix 3. So if I take you straight to on page 28 of your paragraph 4.2, that's where I deal with the statement which has been issued by the cabinet about the arrangements for the fire authority. I'm not going to go through all the bullet points, but I will focus on obviously the fact that you've been extended in post. But towards the end of that page, it says the commissioners will work closely with the Welsh local government authority on the association, sorry, on the pathway to transition. That's their wording. And we will also work closely with the Welsh LGA, the 10 local authorities in South Wales, and cabinet members of those authorities to have, and those cabinet members who have been appointed to us on those new arrangements. Also, Chair, you were thanked for your service, and I understand the Welsh Government are going to be replacing you in short order. We're waiting for that announcement. So that's sort of where the announcement was made. If we then move to paragraph 4.3, the pathway to transition, that's the bit which isn't quite certain as yet. We have put forward a proposal which will be discussed with Welsh Government and Welsh LGA, likely to take the format of something akin to a workshop with our new members, where we can talk through with our governance review team what the new structure should look like, and then what a constitution should look like to support that. So more detail to follow on that. 4.4, obviously I set out that we've had our nominations of Appendix 1, so you'll see all the names listed there. It's only Monmouthshire that we are missing a nomination from. They were waiting, in fairness to Monmouthshire, they were waiting to see what was going to happen. And they do have a meeting in September, so told me I'll get a name shortly after that, so that's helpful. And then what we're doing in the meantime, 4.5, about the interim arrangements, the Strategic Change Transformation Culture Committee, which oversaw and monitored progress with your terms of reference, that last met on the 27th of February. And that was the last meeting of that committee, so that won't meet anymore. And at the Board of Commissioners meeting on the 22nd of May, you formally closed down the Step Forward programme. So effectively, you took the view that any remaining outstanding recommendations are now business as usual, and also that your original terms of reference had been met. That was where we were at that stage. What we are now working with Welsh Government is developing your new terms of reference as commissioners for your extended period. So I'm waiting for that to land, and that would be helpful. And in the meantime, we have a Board of Commissioners meeting, 2 standing committees and a standards committee. So standing committee is over on page 30, will be your people committee and your audit committee. The audit committee is being retitled Governance and Audit to reflect best practice, and new terms of reference will be developed with our governance review team and brought back to commissioners for approval. I myself will also run something akin to a transition workshop with our newly appointed Fire and Rescue Authority members to get their input throughout this sort of planning phase. In addition, at 4.8, we're standing up a new continuous improvement board, and I'm asking you please to approve the terms of reference in Appendix 2. Meeting dates are to be arranged, but they're going to happen in advance of each of your intervention oversight meetings with the Welsh Government, so one to dovetail into the other. The format of that will change, so there will be a detailed meeting every quarter of the continuous improvement board with external stakeholders, and a lighter touch version of that meeting will happen and for new interviews in between, so the 6 weekly points. The internal governance arrangements below commissions are set out paragraph 4.9. There is a typo, so it doesn't matter how many times you read these papers. Decision-making board is not chaired by me, but chaired by the Chief Fire Officer, supported by me. So that was an error, so I apologise, Chief, for that error. So that's that. And then I think that deals with both appendices, but I'm happy to take any questions you might have on anything in the paper or the appendices.
Thank you, Amanda, first of all, for all the work that's done on that, and genuinely thank you for the amount of times you've had to redo the work on that because of some of the choosing. So bring in the chief first of all, and then I'll bring in for further questions.
I'd just like to come back to 4.5, paragraph 4.5, and the closing of the Step Forward programme. There's always a risk, isn't there, that you're moving in one direction and that it's easy to put down on here that, oh yes, that has gone into the business as usual structure. So I just add a bit to that. The target operating model workshop highlighted that we need to have part of the organisation horizon scanning to a much greater degree than the organisation currently does, and also prioritising. So we're in the process at the moment of redesigning a piece of the organisation that does that. We've also developed we've been moving across to a SharePoint site with a Power BI representation that kind of sits as the front of that, in which we've got all of the projects and programmes are currently being mapped to make sure that we do not miss any of those things that are in that Step Forward programme, along with all the other work streams. We've already done a demonstration of how to do a 10-minute stand-up, so that we have people who stand there, go through their programmes and projects, so that we're linking people together in a much better way, so things aren't stovepiped. Really good piece of work, I think, and that will help us also push things out to the right, which this organisation hasn't had a history of doing. So you start moving things on the timeline so that you can really start prioritising. Really good piece of work.
Thank you, Chief. Adam, can I throw you under the bus and just bring you in on Appendix 2, which is the Continuous Improvement Board, because you're the one that's had experience of this type of environment in and I'm going to use the term loosely, services in special measures.
Yeah, thanks, Carl. You most certainly can throw me under the bus. Yeah, so the continuous improvement board, as the chief has just sort of outlined there, we're moving more towards what we're terming as a strategic engine around improvement in the service. Now, a lot of that will be, as I said, horizon scanning, looking at what's coming in from the inspections and servicing what we know is going to be quite a robust inspection framework in whatever shape that looks like moving forwards. But knowing, particularly from experience from being engaged previously, there's an element of being able to be like self-assured. We've mentioned it already around how are we standing on our own 2 feet, and particularly in a transitional phase between moving from special measures, i.e. commissioners, into a fire authority. So what we want to do, and we've purposely used the term continuous improvement board. So this is the mechanism by which we hope to demonstrate that at the point in which intervention does end in South Wales Fire and Rescue Service, we have a continuous self-assurance mechanism, which will supplement the performance assurance framework to make sure that the work we're doing through the PMO, the work that we do to continually make sure we're concentrating and focusing on the right areas, we are demonstrating the value and the outcomes of those things. So writing our own narrative essentially, and demonstrating to whoever the stakeholder may be that these are the outcomes of what we're doing and this is the difference it's making to the service. So it's quite a holistic and a general look at improvement, but I think it does what we need in terms of standing on our own 2 feet and starting to show that we are gripping improvement, and we will continue to do that moving forwards, whatever the context is.
Thank you, Adam. That's really helpful. Any other questions? I've got just a couple of points. So just points really. May is definitely indicative because that's the date of the local election, so it will not be the date that the intervention ends. So I think realistically, it's just kind of, isn't it, really, that probably it's going to be about this time sort of time at the very earliest, in my humble opinion, but I might be wrong. So just one around that one. In terms of reference, and the other paperwork is all sat with the Cabinet Minister at the moment. Welsh Government officials are going to try to speak to her to see if she's comfortable with that, and that will kind of generate that. So that's all sat right. And there is a broader conversation, Chief, around the future of structure around IOB, the Welsh Government officials, including who attends. So that conversation, we started that conversation with them last week, but it didn't come to a conclusion of what that means. So that's something just to bear in mind. So we're asked to note, are we all comfortable with that? I think, and approve. Yes, I'm getting lots of nods and thumbs up. So thank you, Amanda. And then we'll move on to the time.
Yes, Chair, I can be very quick with this one. This is literally just setting out your schedule of meeting days. I mean, I suppose the one thing I bring to the attention of 4.1 is there are a lot of meetings. So we are going to be exceptionally busy. And I know I've spoken to commissioners about we need to maybe try and condense the amount of work we're doing on reports, for example, to make this more manageable. So we are going to have meeting dates for the Board of Commissioners, Governance and Audit, People Committee, Standards Committee, Local Pension Board, Independent Advisory Group, and the Continuous Improvement Board meeting. So you could end up just being a factory preparing papers for meetings. So it's just to sort of put that on everybody's radar. We will do our absolute best, obviously, and I will be working particularly hard with the governance review team to try and get a forward work plan to make sure that that we get the right reports in front of you to only all of those meetings. Meetings are going to be taking place on a Friday for the rest of this municipal year, and the meeting dates are in Appendix 1. Happy to take some questions.
Okay, so I'll bring you questions, but can I obviously, we've said this before, and I do genuinely mean it. I think commissioners actually have the view, just because we've always done the meetings a certain way doesn't mean we need to continue doing meetings in a certain way. So, you know, Adam and I spoke about it briefly yesterday. What we bring to them, how we bring to them, some of it needs to be in a particular way because it's a legal requirement. All of it, it's in our gift. So do we need to do lots of papers? Could we do it in a PowerPoint? Could we do this PowerPoint? There are other ways of doing it to reduce the demand on officers and senior people within the organisations. We are a little bit hooked on, we like lots of papers. So there is a definite, this is the structure, this is the approach. How we deliver those is, I think, is a gasp to actually do things differently if we want to. Definitely. And I think that I'm speaking for Lady Wilcox and Vidge on that point, and Kirsty. Yep.
The only other thing to highlight for this is, I've just noticed on 19th of October, that's when we currently scheduled the new member induction for the new fire authority members. And then we can start having those workshops after that induction. So they get a proper introduction and context for the service.
Okay, so I'm not seeing any other hands, so are we happy to agree the timetable? Yep. Thank you, Amanda, that's great. And the royalty, it can be tweaked if we need to. Fabulous, great stuff. Thank you very much. Liam?
Thank you, Chair. So this next paper is for the external audit plan. So I'm asking Board of Commissioners to note and accept the plan. Just before I bring Jeremy and or Charles in to talk through the report, ordinarily this would come to the Finance and Audit Committee. But it's quite unusual for it to come at this point in the year. It would be highly unusual for it to come after the statement of accounts have been approved, which is the next agenda item, which is the reason why it's come to the Board of Commissioners today. So it covers the programme of work for audit workers on both their financial audit and their performance audit work. And the only things that I wanted to flag before bringing colleagues in is that it was shared with me in the draft before coming here. I'm comfortable with the content of it, and the fee included in the report is not unexpected and has been fully budgeted for.
Thank you.
So yeah, I'll hand over to Audit Williams.
Charles, Jeremy, who wants to lead for it?
Great, I'll start, Chair, and then I'll pass over to Jeremy. Just to flag, really, as Liam said, this kind of sets out our work intended for the financial year. Just to flag before I hand over to Jeremy as well, obviously you'll see in the introduction that there's a picture of the previous Auditor General, just to make the authority aware. The Auditor General changed 10 days ago and is now Catherine Mealing-Jones, if you weren't already aware of that. But that, before I go on to the performance audit, I'll let Jeremy speak to the financial audit section of the plan.
Thanks, Charles. Thanks, Chair. Yeah, just a standard audit plan really sets out the financial audit work which we would do. Ordinarily, like I think Liam said, this would have gone to your audit committee and probably at an earlier date. But to get it through and to have it before you actually hear our report on the accounts, it's here. I really don't want to go through the detail of it because I'll be covering, in my report on the accounts what we've actually done. So I just invite any questions on the financial audit element of it at this point.
So Jerry, just a question for me while I think if they've got any question. Is there anything fundamentally changed going forward to previous years that because of the experience of other audits, or is it relatively similar to what we've been seeing last year and the year before?
Very similar to what you would have seen last year and the year before, yes.
Thank you. Any other questions for Jeremy on the finance side? Liam? No?
No, I've shared comments, but I haven't got.
Lady Wilcox, I know you through the finance committee would normally have seen this. Anything from yourself?
No, it all looks pretty straightforward. It looks like business as usual from Audit Wales, and we will ensure that, you know, our overall governance of the finance is as tight as it can be. I mean, we have, you know, we are benefiting greatly from the addition of a director of finance to the organisation. So, you know, we hope this year it will be smooth running. Thank you.
Thank you, Lady Wilcox. Really appreciated. Charles, I'll hand over to you.
Perfect. Thank you, Chair. Picking up then the performance audit section, which starts on page 69 of your pack, I believe. The plan sets out the Auditor General's requirements in terms of her performance audit work and how she goes about doing that, including assessing risk at a high level around strategic and financial planning, performance and risk management, etc., and our compliance with the international performance audit standards. Also, the Auditor General has duties with regards to the Wellbeing of Future Generations Act, which are also set out there, and uniquely in an FRA context, the local government measure still. The plan sets out the one intended project for this year coming, which looks at counter fraud arrangements. Given obviously the challenges in the current financial climate, there is even greater incentive for fraud across the whole of the country, but obviously in particular in the public sector. So we'll be looking at those arrangements that will follow an approach that we've used several times now in principal councils. So it's a very well established and smooth process in terms of the kind of fieldwork and questions that we'll be asking of officers. In addition to that work, of course, we will do our certifications under the measure of the improvement objectives and also the annual performance assessment. And I'm happy to say that we've scheduled the counter fraud work for October with officers. So hope to be able to bring that report to you either just before Christmas or early in the new year with those findings. I would just update you briefly on the work from the previous financial year. So financial sustainability, that report is now ready, and I think is finding a slot for the Governance and Audit Committee, and our continuous improvement audit, which is an additional piece of work that we performed last year. That's currently being finalised internally in our publications team. So hopefully be able to provide officers a final version of that report in due course once it's been through translation, etc. So just the kind of final couple of sections on the plan. Obviously, there's a section there around the fee. The fee was approved by the fee regime through the fee scheme was approved by the Senedd, the previous Senedd before the election. The previous Auditor General wrote to all audited bodies in November 2025, setting out the reasons for the above inflation increase. I don't have anything to add to that letter, but just to direct officers and commissioners to that letter in terms of the reasoning behind the increase. But just to emphasise, it is an estimate in the plan. If things go really smoothly or there are unexpected and unforeseen challenges, that fee can go up or it can go down. So it is an estimate. And in terms of the fee for last year, you can see there the confirmed financial audit fee. And once we've presented the two reports that I mentioned earlier, we will confirm the the performance audit fee for last year as well, to give you that kind of assurance at the end of the audit cycle for last year. So just to kind of say, all of our contact details are in the back should any of you wish to get in contact with us. But otherwise, Chair, that's it from me in terms of the plan. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Charles. And do we have a rough date for that report to come through yet, Amanda, or are we just going to have to do a little bit of work around that, do we think?
The counter fraud?
On the previous report.
I take that one, Chair. So the financial sustainability report, the final report was received. It just missed the deadline for this finance audit.
So probably the next one.
So it'll absolutely come to the next one.
Thank you. And just while there's Charles, just one question of the fraud work. Will that look internally and external threats, or is it just internal threats and governance?
So it looks around how the authority, its arrangements to prevent fraud, essentially, and that includes, you know, scanning the external environment, but also its internal processes. And it also touched on things like the National Fraud Initiative as well.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. Amanda?
You may not be aware, but we have a counter fraud, bribery, corruption, economic crime risk assessment paper going to the Finance and Audit Committee this afternoon. So that sets us up nicely for that audit. So Liam will be dealing with that in much more detail, but it should cover all the elements just mentioned.
Brilliant. That's time is everything. Okay, questions or clearly everybody wants to talk about funding, Charles, so luckily we won't raise anything on that one. I don't think I can see any questions, so it's just a thank you to you both for coming. Thank you very much for the input today, really helpful. And as always, I think I want to say welcome the opportunity to work with you and the scrutiny that you bring. It's always incredibly helpful. Thank you both. Right, moving on then to audited statement of accounts.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. So again, I'll bring Jeremy in from Audit Wales to talk through in a second. Just a few things I wanted to flag first off. So this report is to bring to you the audited statements of accounts and annual governance statement for 25-26. If I just run through the recommendations first, it's initially to note the audited financial statements report that Jeremy will talk through, known as the I-660 report. And the intention for Audit Wales to issue an unqualified audit opinion. Unqualified is a good thing in this case. Also to approve then the audited statement of accounts and the annual governance statement, and then note that there's a number of documents that will be signed by a combination of myself, Carl as the chair, and the chief following this meeting if they are subsequently approved. So another couple of points that I wanted to cover. First off, a huge thank you to the finance team, and well done as well. So we're one of only a handful of bodies in Wales who are working for faster closing timetable of draft accounts by May, final accounts by July. A lot of organisations are working to draft by the end of June and final accounts by the end of September, which I'll touch on in a second as well. So yeah, with a relatively new team in the finance team as well, it's really good news and shows really strong financial governance actually to be able to meet that timeline. Big thanks to Jeremy, Kate, Julie and Audit Wales colleagues as well, hit that faster timeline. We need to work with them professionally, but also they've had a really supportive and pragmatic approach to the audit, which has allowed us to move forward at pace, but also provide you with the assurance that you need and the Auditor General with the assurance that she needs as well. I just wanted to draw Commissioner's attention to paragraphs 3.1 and 3.2 of the report, which covers the statutory deadlines for publishing audit accounts by the 31st of July. Even though you are signing the accounts today, the audit certification process by the Auditor General means that we won't be publishing the accounts until early August. So I think we've got a slot booked in for the 4th of August. So we've technically missed the statutory deadline in that regard. What I will say is a deadline that's never been implemented fully across the public sector. It was introduced in 2019, I think, but Welsh Government set out their expectations each year, and that's rolled forward from December, I think it was, and then it went to November, October, and this year the expectations from Welsh Government is that those accounts will be published by the end of September, taking us back to what was the old statutory deadlines, and they are looking to amend the legislation to take it back to that. So yeah, we're still well within the expectations from Welsh Government. As I said, one of the only public bodies in Wales there are, but technically we're outside the statutory deadline by a few days, so just wanted to flag that. And I think that is, oh no, one other point I wanted to raise, sorry. The paper notes of the audit was still ongoing. The publication of the papers was conducted. That final review has resulted in a few minor tweaks, inconsequential tweaks to the final document. Jeremy will draw any to your attention that he feels you need to be made aware of. But other than that, I'll hand over to Jeremy, Chair.
Thank you, Liam. That's really helpful context. Jeremy.
Thank you, Liam. Thank you, Chair. I won't go over what Liam's already covered really, but I draw your attention to the fact that we're issuing an unqualified opinion again for the authority and its pension fund accounts. We're also not bringing it to your attention any significant matters, But there is an appendix which shows the changes which were made to the draft accounts, which is, not unusual for most accounts, and it is quite impressive really that you get your accounts prepared by when you do, and we get the audit just about completed by the no longer adhered to statutory deadlines. And I can confirm that the Auditor General will be signing the accounts, I think, on, like Liam said, on the 4th of August. So you can publish then. And at that point, I'd invite any questions, Chair.
Thank you, Jeremy. So looking around, I've just got one question. So the summary of corrections, obviously, because you always drag your eye, don't you, to things like that. Was there any learning from your point of view around those corrections that we can take moving forward?
There probably will be, yes, Chair. I wouldn't want to set out what those were at this point in time. What we do when we've concluded everything is we'll have a meeting with Liam and his team and work out a way forward where we can make improvements and efficiencies for the coming year's audit.
Okay, Jeremy, that's great. Thank you. So any other points, questions for Jeremy or Liam? I can't see any hands raising. So for the minutes then, I think we are approving the external audit plan and we're approving the statement of accounts. And I'm getting lots of nods, so thank you for that one.
Sorry, James, the annual governance statement as well.
And the evidence governance statement. Yeah. Okay, so getting nods on there. And I think you said it, Liam, and you talked about the last 12 months, but the finance team has been in transition ever since I've been here for 2.5 years. The fact that they have managed to achieve what they have achieved every year for the last 2.5 years is really, really positive. And thank you for Audit Well for their support, but thank you absolutely, I think, from behalf of all of us to the team there that have worked so hard to get to this point. Hopefully, we'll have a bit more stability going forward.
Yeah, no, thanks, Chair. I'll pass that on.
Thank you. Thank you all. So moving on then to social partnership duty.
That's true. So again, the purpose of this report is to provide the Commissioners with a draft report for approval so that it can be submitted to the Welsh Government. As a service, we note the comments submitted by the recognised trade unions, Social Partnership Report 25-26. We remain committed to working in social partnership with all recognised trade unions, and the service remains fully committed to the principles of social partnership and Public Procurement Act. I think it's important as well, Chair, that the service, we know the service has invested significantly in the partnership structures and engagement mechanisms that we've seen within the organisation and development of a corporate staff consultation and negotiation group, the operational joint consultation and negotiation forum, health and safety wellbeing committee, the independent advisory group, and the dedicated digital consultation and information sharing platform. The report itself demonstrates that the service is not standing still and change can be difficult sometimes. But as we've seen within South Wales Fire Service, the history of the service, we have undergone probably the largest organisational transformation programme that's been noted in the history of the service. Just a response to some specific comments within the report from the two trade unions. The Unison contribution shares the results of the 2026 staff survey. Whilst we welcome the results of the survey, those have not been shared with the service prior to receiving them or inclusion in the report. So, as a result, neither myself or any of the other officers have had any opportunity to review the results in detail or view the discussions and results of the survey Unison. That said, the survey welcomes the feedback provided by Unison, and we will continue to work in that spirit of social partnership with them and review the results of the staff survey. The FBU's contribution covers a range of areas, and what I think is key as well, we can see that progression when you compare the report on previous years as well. We welcome the response and we appreciate the recognition of the positive progress achieved through the service. We acknowledge the concerns raised regarding the consistency and engagement, the communication policies development and the opportunities to workforce representation. However, Chair, it should be noted that a number of the policies have been delayed due to non-agreement with the FBU. And I think that's something for us to be mindful of as part of that as well. So as I draw this to a close now, again, the development of a new social partnership protocol, I think, is going to bolster some of those concerns that have been raised by the trade unions. And the social partnership protocol aligns to social partnership legislation, ACAS good practice guidance, and the Grey Book and Green Book requirements as part of that. So for the Commissioners and the public's assurance, South Wales Fire and Rescue Service has established a robust social partnership structure and continues to invest in improving it. Trade unions remain actively engaged and committed to working collaboratively with the service. And whilst differing views remain on some issues, this reflects a healthy challenge rather than a relationship breakdown from us. Again, Chair, as I bring it to a close, we will continue to encourage as well the other trade unions that exist within the organisation to ensure that they're contributing to certainly the 26-27 report.
Thank you, Matt. Really helpful and really helpful report. So, questions, thoughts from anybody on the screen, first of all? Lady Wilcox.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for this report. It makes very interesting reading. Because figures are powerful things, and in reading the report, particularly from Unison, it says 80% of staff, 70% of staff, 60% of staff. Just to clarify in my mind, what proportion is that of the workforce that both for the FBU and Unison? So FBU are about what, 90% of our workforce?
Yeah, probably higher than that, Lady Wilcox. Probably teetering towards that. Probably 98% of the workforce would be FBU members.
Right. So about 98% of the workforce. So does that mean then that the remaining 2% of the workforce is Unison?
No. Sorry, that's just from an operational perspective. A uniform perspective. There would be no uniform staff. That would be part of Unison, Lady Wilcox. The Green Book corporate staff would be part of that.
Right. So Green Book. So have we got an idea of percentage of members?
Yeah, so I've just done a quick calculation and I estimate 7% of our corporate staff, which totals around 320 people, are Unison members. So there's a handful of Unison members.
So effectively, probably 25 to 30.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, because these. So in the report, because some of the findings, as I said, 70%, 80%, but those high figures need to be put in context to the actual numbers, I think, is what I'm looking at. Back in the day, I had 100% pass rate, but I only had 4 students doing A-level that year. Do you know what I mean? The following year, I had 38, and I couldn't get that 100% out of 38. So figures are important, and surveys are important, but I think there just needs to be context here as well. And my other point about this, and it's a point I've raised in previous meetings, and it's more prescient than ever now. We have a new government in Wales, and social partnership was certainly featured largely in the previous government from a different political party. And I just wonder, I just put this out there, whether the social partnership model that this report refers to will be the social partnership model going forward by the new government, whether it will contain the same parameters or indeed whether it will exist at all. I just offer that as a thought about how things change when governments change. Thank you.
Thank you, Lady Wilcox. I'm going to bring in Kirsty and then bring in the Chief.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you to Matt for the report. Matt, at the end of the report, you stated that you would seek opportunities to ensure that all unions, recognised unions, contribute to this report going forward. I appreciate that the unions that are currently contributing cover the majority of our staff, but certainly, when commissioners have met with the staff side, we've had contributions from other unions, and I just wonder what will that how will you deliver on that that encouragement? So could you outline what activities you'll be undertaking to ensure that all recognised unions contribute to the report next year?
Yes. Thank you, Commissioner. One of the things I've done this week is I've met with both the other unions that exist. You've got, for example, from the operational side, you've got FOA and you've got the FSRA. And I've met with both those individuals this week to ensure they're attending and are representing and have a voice on our operational joint consultative forum. So I've really encouraged that, and they've had the dates this week now regarding that to ensure that's split across there. But also as well, Commissioner, what I will be doing in relation to the report for next year is ensuring that we encourage and engage with them, probably with bringing them in as well. So as the report is we do to the deadline to actually contribute to the report, I would be asking them to come in and having a meeting and ensuring we keep those touch points with them throughout the year as well.
Kirsty, is that okay?
No, thank you very much for that, Matt. So I guess what we're setting ourselves is an ambition and a success criteria that would mean that more unions would contribute to this report next year. And that's how we would measure whether we had been successful.
Absolutely, Kirsty. I think that's we've got lots of nods around the room around that as an aspiration that we should look at. But
just quickly on Lady Wilcox's point, we did approach Unison for a breakdown of that staff survey, but it wasn't forthcoming.
Right.
So
Okay. No, that's really helpful. Chief.
That was just covering my point.
Okay. Right.
I'm so sorry.
But no, I think it's really helpful context so that we've asked
we were
it.
going to talk to another topic, so that's why.
So I don't think I can see anything else. So last 2 points from me. We have got a paper further on around the whole time duty system, which demonstrates the challenges and the benefits of social partnerships. So, I mean, read some of the comments that you read, it can feel quite negative, but you see that and actually the work that's gone on by a number of senior principal officers in the force to get to that point. So you know, there is that bit. And there is this bit around social partnership. It does go both ways. It's supposed to be a working partnership, and partnerships do work together, and it isn't just a one-way street. And I think that's the important bit going forward. So we're asked to review and approve. I think we're happy with the report and what's been done, and certainly the aspiration for the future, Matt. So that's really, really positive. So I think we can sign that off for Welsh Government. And it will be interesting, as Lady will say, around where the aspirations of the new government goes around social partnership. But ultimately, the principles are right, aren't they? You know, so whatever we do, the principle is there, if the view changes slightly.
Yes.
Fabulous. Thank you, Matt. Really, really appreciate it. Right, who's doing the recruitment? And I hope it's not you, Alison.
Samantha.
Good. For obvious reasons, that was going to be really uncomfortable. Really uncomfortable.
Thank you, Chair. I'm going to take this for the deputy because he's so poorly. So I'll do my best.
It's just got man flu, isn't it?
Well, speech is difficult when you've got a bug. So anyway, so this paper seeks endorsement of an urgent decision you've already made. Okay, so you made that decision on the 30th of July, and I'll come to the reasons for that in a moment. But basically, we're asking you to now formally endorse what you've already approved in advance. So the recommendations are endorse the recruitment process, which we've already started, for a new director of people and organisational development, endorse the candidate pack, which embodies the job description or role description, and then endorse the appointment that we made on the 20th of July of Gate and Resurfacing to assist us with that recruitment and the associated costs and timeline. So by way of background, as you see, Assistant Chief Officer Alison Reid, who's in the room, on the 6th of July, she announced that she intended to retire from service at the end of this year. She has served with us since February 19, so over 7 years. Over the page on 3.2, I explained that the thought process behind having an urgent decision is this is a key, highly important and big profile role for the service. We were just coming into the holiday season, and it was felt that if we waited for this meeting, you'd literally be placing an advert when everybody's away on holiday. So that was the main reason for that urgent decision. That decision was made on 13th of July, and the advert is already live. And the law for that decision under the Constitution is in Appendix 1, so it's provision 11.5 of the Constitution. Moving on to the requirements of the Officer Employment Procedure Rules in the Constitution, you as Commissioners should formally approve the job description and person specification. That's set out in the candidate pack and Appendix 2. The other thing I just bring your attention to is 4.4, which is the process and timeline we're following. So the advert is live. We've got a closing date of midday, the 24th of August. There will then be a long listing meeting, preliminary interviews conducted by Gaten v Sanderson, a short listing meeting, online psychometric, assessments, not psychiatric, and then stakeholder engagement panel, the details of that to be worked out, and a final interview panel and presentation at the end of September. We've taken some advice from Gaten v Sanderson at 4.5. We've gone for a tailored CV, setting out basically career history and achievements. 3 selection questions to be answered in no more than 2,000 words. And something quite new and novel, which is quite nice, a short video introduction explaining their interest in the role, so we can sort of get to see. So rather than just seeing someone on paper, you actually get to see someone in person as well. Which I've experienced before in Avon, which I found incredibly helpful, and I know the elected members found incredibly useful as well. So that's a slightly different approach. So everything's set out with appendices. Happy to take any questions you might have.
Mitch?
Just one observation. It's great. I think we should be absolutely doing this. I like the fact that our documentation now is much more blended between corporate and operational. Before, I think it just used to be one quick kind of stuff. I think because a lot of people, there's a PR opportunity with all our marketing material to the wider public. A lot of people don't realise what a constituted fire and rescue service involves. People, in my own experience, used to think that all firefighters, the biggest unit was a fire station. They don't really put it all together. So the whole corporate construction as well is really important, and it's good to see the blend of imagery that sort of dovetails both sides, because this role will involve a very close relationship with the operational side and vice versa. So I think it's good.
And we need to thank Brian's team for that, because and particularly the number of amendments that were made to make sure we got the timeline right. They were incredibly patient and helpful, so super work by that team.
Thank you, Mitch. So a couple of points before anybody the questions. I think the pack looks right, and let's just remember back to why we made the decision so quickly. It's a massively critical role. It's a critical role within any organisation, Alison, and you're going to be a big loss, as I said already. But it's a critical role when you look at the work streams and the change and the transformation that services are going to go through over the next 12 months. So getting somebody in with the right skills, the right calibre, and the right expertise is absolutely critical for the organisation going forward. So that's one of the reasons that we supported the going out to a consultancy, because we want to get the very, very best candidates for this service to support the executive team and the wider service as it goes forward. So, it was the speed that we made the decision on. So we've been asked to make endorse effectively the recruitment process, the candidate pack, and endorse the appointment process. Are we happy with that? I've got thumbs up. Yeah, great stuff. Rhian, if you can pass on our thanks to the team. Vij said it already, but the packs now and how they look just look so much more enthusiastic and better than they did before. When you want to apply, well, I don't, but you'd want to apply, wouldn't you? And that's what you want people to do. So thank you for all the work on that. Great stuff. And now we just need some really good candidates. No pressure. Fabulous. Thank you all. So next one on, which is slightly, we discussed at the start of the meeting, and because of the crossover, and I do recognise it affects people in the room on that one, but there is, unless we wipe out pretty much the whole of the leadership team in here, it's going to feel a little bit odd. So ultimately, as we said at the start, this is about getting service to the right place and being fair and transparent around what we're offering and what we're going to do. So on that context, then let's go around the senior leadership team annual leave. Liam?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. And as I said, this is around aligning to what are nationally negotiated terms and conditions around annual leave as well. That's a really important point. So we're not proposing anything here that isn't aligning to nationally negotiated terms and conditions. So just to take a step back, an issue has arisen where within the senior leadership team, there is some discrepancy over annual leave entitlement. So within the senior leadership team, you've got individuals on 3 different nationally negotiated terms and conditions. Those are Green Book, Grey Book and Gold Book. And over several years, there's been inconsistency and confusion over how this has impacted annual leave entitlement. There was a piece of work a few years ago as well around aligning pay for those individuals as well, which has maybe added to some of the confusion that we've seen. But ultimately, this paper is bringing forward recommendations to put that right. So yeah, when those discrepancies have been identified, it's taking corrective action to put those right. Where there's a longer term impact, which what I will say is this is in a very small minority of cases, it's proposed that additional annual leave or equivalent payment or a combination of both is offered to individuals who, where the positive impact exceeds 5 days. If that was, if the payment option was shown in that instance, it would come to a total cost of around about £20,000. Any contractual amendments for those negatively impacted would be managed appropriately, with proposed changes implemented from the next annual leave year, recognising that individuals make plans with their annual leave, and it wouldn't be fair or reasonable to make that change from today. There's further recommendation in the report then in relation to a review of long service entitlement for Green Book employees. So as part of this work, we've looked at the impact of reducing the qualifying period to 5 years from what is currently 10 years and 15 years for long service leave. This will bring it more in line with Gold and Grey Book, which are both 5 years, but also more consistent with other local government bodies as well. That will be, if you agree that today, that will be subject to an impact assessment and consultation with the trade union. So at this stage, you would be approving a review of that policy. Paragraphs 4.14, 4.15 sets out the steps being taken to ensure consistency for the future. So we don't want to be coming back to you in a few years' time, say, oh, this issue has arisen again. So the corrective measures, the one we'll be making to make sure that that doesn't happen again, but also undertaking an exercise to provide assurance that this issue is isolated to the senior leadership team. As I touched on at the start, sorry, the fact we've got 3 different national negotiated terms and conditions and the alignment of pay has contributed to this. That was an isolated incident for SLT rather than more widely, so we're hopeful that this issue is isolated, and we will carry out an exercise to ensure that that is the case. So I just wanted to run quickly then through the recommendations, Chair, if I may. So the Board of Commissioners are asked to approve the alignment of annual leave entitlement for SLT members to the annual leave arrangements that are applicable to their role. Approve corrective adjustments where an individual has received less annual leave than the entitlement applicable to their role from the date of their appointment to the relevant post as well. The point that I raised earlier around where it exceeds 5 working days, the individual is offered additional annual leave, a payment equivalent to the value of the leave or a combination of both. Approve that where an individual's current annual leave entitlement exceeds the entitlement applicable to their role, any changes implemented from the start of the next annual leave year. And then the final one for approval is the consultation with recognised trade union bodies on amending that long service enhancement after 5 years service rather than through the current 10 and 15 year stepped arrangement. And then finally to note that any contractual changes will be managed through appropriate advice from People Services, written communication and hopefully with the individuals as well.
Thank you, Liam, and thank you for the work on it. It's the chief always uses an analogy: when you pick up a stone, you pick up the stone, and we've identified the issue. So, questions. So, 2 elements to this: the approvals around the here and now, and then the Green Book consultation. Really. So, Kirsty, anything from you first of all?
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you to Liam for undertaking this work. As has been said, this is a really regrettable situation that has been uncovered. and it is only right that we address this. Liam, I was interested in what you said about safeguards and processes to be put in place to avoid this ever happening again. And I wonder if you could give some further detail on what that will look like, please, and some assurance that we won't find ourselves having to undertake such an exercise in the future.
Yeah, thanks, Commissioner. I'll come in on that point, but I am conscious that it will sit with Alison's team, or Alison's replacement's team going forward as well, to manage these controls. But it's just bear with me a second. So it's establishing the factual and contractual basis for each entitlement, and following this, we can communicating that back to the individuals who are drafting contracts. Ensure that this is documented and updated in a master version of each contract, and then implementation of a two-step quality assurance process prior to contracts being issued. So it's strengthening those controls at the contractual issue point is the key area, Commissioner.
Kirsty?
Thank you very much. Appreciate that clarity. I just wonder at what point will we test that system in terms of internal audit to make sure what we say we're going to do, we're actually doing.
I think that's a fair point. We can get that added to the internal audit programme for future years.
So on Kirsty's point there, if we can look at when we would start that and set a date for that, when that would be, Liam, I think that just brings up that reassurance, because the reality is, as far as I understand it, some of the issues here, hasn't it, is using old contracts, cut and paste and move forward. There was always a risk, isn't it, that habit will fall back again. So if we can get that built into the internal audit, Kirsty, I think that will be add value. Thank you, Lady Wilcox.
Thank you, Chair. Just following on from that point, I want a reassurance really from Liam that the process will be implemented, sensitively and appropriately, because clearly in anything like this there are going to be winners and losers. So if we can be assured that that is going to go as well as it can be, and to highlight to us any areas of dissonance where there may be some problems arising, because I would prefer things to be sorted out before they become a problem. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Commissioner. And I've had some informal conversations with every individual affected, either positively or potentially adversely.
Okay.
So I've had some of those informal discussions already. But of course, yeah, we will manage that sensitively, and we will bring to commissioners any issues that arise from that. Chief, do you want to answer on that?
Yeah, I think sort of following on from that, although not directly, it's really important. It'd be easy to look at this paper in isolation and say, oh, look, the senior leadership team have been looking at the senior leadership team. This is part of a broader piece of work in which we're looking at the basis of everything in the organisation. This is one of the things that's cropped up. The next paper you're about to receive, one of the aspects of that is we are looking at making sure that our firefighters get the appropriate levels of public holiday leave that they're entitled to. So this is part of a broad piece of work. I don't want this to be misconstrued as the senior leadership team is just looking at the senior leadership team.
And that's important for the internal comms.
Absolutely.
Thank you for that. It's really helpful. Anything else? I've got a couple of small points before we move on, unless anybody else got any questions. So I think really positive around that wider piece of work that may or may not come out the back of it. At least we're kind of thinking about that, Liam. That's really positive. Is there a risk around those that have left the organisation around historic claims? So I would say that from my previous organisation where we did.
Yeah, potentially. I think, as I alluded to in the report, this is an issue that has arisen over the last few years, I believe. My view is partly linked to a copy and paste of the previous contract, as you discussed, Chair, but also that change to equalising pay has maybe had an impact. So we think it's limited to the last few years for new individuals coming in, maybe in the last 5 years, of which there aren't a great number as far as I'm aware who come in and left. So I think we're dealing with the majority of the issue. inevitably they need something.
As long as we've got one eye on that, Liam, that's absolutely fine, isn't it? Yeah, I say, I've sadly been had that before, but it's just one of those kind of things, isn't it? You suddenly get people that have left the organisation saying, I'm entitled to another 5 days, and by the way, can you please pay me? So as long as we're sighted on that one. And I'm presuming from the decision that we're making here, we're not looking to claim back from those that may have had more leave.
No.
So that is a conscious decision we're making, isn't it?
Yeah, that's to implement it, as well as the recommendation says, from the next leave year.
Yeah.
So we won't be looking to claim back for
Right.
what is ultimately a service error.
Yeah, okay, that's fine. And that's the rationale. It's a service error. People were doing the right thing, and unbeknownst to them.
Yes, yeah.
So I think then we're at decision point then. So if I do the Green Book forward work piece first of all, are we comfortable that we start the negotiations around the Green Book element? Yep, got another. And then around the particular asks around decision for the equalisation from the next calendar year, are we supportive of there and the recommendations that Liam has made? Yes, getting another. Thank you, Liam. Thank you for the work. It's really important. It'll be interesting to see where they're going. Thanks all. Fabulous. Thank you. Mike.
I will kick this off. So this is a paper about the whole time duty system. I arrived in this service and I was a bit confused about why South Wales Fire and Rescue Service had a system that was very different to every other service in the land. Either we were really driving forward something brilliant, or had a few problems with it. And certainly, as I went around every single station last year, almost every single station highlighted the issues with the rostering in, rostering out system that we have in place, citing lack of ability to take public holidays, but also, in my mind, there was a very transactional system that the service had created, whereby you get rostered out with 21 days to go and immediately told, you now owe me, or you owe the service some days, and then you can be rostered in with 7 days to go. So it sort of takes away the whole principle of a 2-3-4 system that's operating in the rest of the country, where you've got stability and you know where you can and can't make arrangements in your personal life. Added to that, we have a problem with public holidays, so people unable to take their public holidays. The dissatisfaction probably is linked to the sickness issue that we have in South Wales Fire and Rescue Service. So we set about trying to explore ways of doing things differently. And I'll now pass over to Mike, because a lot of work has been done. I commend everybody involved, both in the room but also in the FBU, and actually everybody out there who's put their views forward to this. A lot of work has gone into this. So, Mike.
Thank you, Chief. Mike.
Thank you. Yes, I go on to our current full-time duty system, which is a flexible rostering system. So it allowed us to make significant savings when it was introduced, over £1 million worth of savings. So we took our establishment right back. So we're currently at a level of 644. But that is before your sickness and your other abstractions, training courses, secondments, etc. So it, as Chief alluded to, it's been an issue for a number of years. People aren't dissatisfied for those reasons. They're coming in on they've been rostered off in the summer, in the winter, brought back in the summer. They particularly on a Saturday, Friday, Saturday, weekend days. So there is that dissatisfaction there. We have looked at various arrangements to try to overcome the issues, including using overtime between September and April. Did have some benefits, but again, the financial implications that were not sustainable. So we entered into negotiations, realizing there's an issue, extensive negotiations with the FBU. Initially, the first proposal wasn't accepted, so we did additional work to overcome some of those issues, which included care dependency leave. So with flexible rostering, what you need to move away from it is an increased establishment. So with flexible rostering, by rostering in and rostering off, you're able to reduce your establishment. The minute you move away from that into a traditional 2-2-4, you now need to bolster your numbers. you're now unable to roster in to cover shortfalls. So the proposal does include an increase of 12 firefighters. So taking our establishment from 644 to 656. We have guaranteed in the short term, so this will come in phases. Our current levels will increase to 644, making sure at the moment with retirement profiles, etc., we're around 631. So we're going to bolster that, ensure there's 644, before then going out for recruitment again, taking it up to the 656. That will enable us to bring back the traditional 224 system and remove flexible rostering in a controlled and planned manner. This will hopefully improve our sickness levels by providing a predictable duty system for our crew members. As I mentioned earlier, working with the union, we now have a revised arrangement regarding care dependency leave. What is fundamental in this, and one of our biggest abstraction concerns, is sickness. So we're going to enter into a working group with the FBU, looking at how we can improve sickness levels across the service. So if we can improve sickness levels, which is currently around 11.7%, we're then going to look to improve the number of people on the fire trucks. So that, as Chief mentioned, the major concern is being able to ride 5. So being able to ride 5 on all the appliances, 2 on the specials, that's our 120 baseline level. It'll also allow us then to grant more public holidays, which is fundamental for our members to ensure that they get their time off. So we're hoping the proposal will deliver improve operational resilience, increase stability in station crewing, greater ability to maintain appliance availability, and reduce reliance on temporary resilience measure and excessive overtime. Key points: 12 firefighters represent a targeted and proportionate increase designed to strengthen resilience. We will hopefully improve our ability to take public holidays for our members. The sickness level, as I mentioned, we're currently at 11.7%. To be really effective with this proposal, and the FBU have been informed and notified, we need to work towards sickness level of around 6%. We're almost looking at half what our current sickness level is. For this reason, the proposal includes a commitment from both the service and FBU to work jointly through governance arrangements, focusing on sickness reduction, attendance management, and workforce well-being. The FBU has confirmed its commitment to continue collaborative working in these areas. Recurring costs: 12 additional firefight posts. You're looking at approximately £672,000. Based on approved on cost of firefighter rate of £56,016. 2026-27 estimated in-year cost of approximately £500,000 includes party salaries and arrangements to buy back shifts owed by the service. Liam, our finance director, is initially looking to support this funded through reserves. And ongoing costs will be considered through the productivity and efficiency programme and future set-in process. This does represent a significant change from our current position, but I think the proposal, if not approved, would mean the flexible rostering remains in place. The establishment would remain at 644. The existing workforce concerns, which have been around for a significant period of time, would continue. Professional and operational resilience would also remain. So we are looking to move away from flexible rostering, but also increase, to recap, our workforce by 12 firefighters to 656. I'm happy to stop there and answer any questions.
Mike, thank you. So, questions and thoughts. I've got a couple, but Kirsty and then Vitch.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you to Mike for bringing the paper forward today, and for all of those that have been involved in the process to get us to this point. I know that it has been a challenging process, but I think we've got to a good place. My questions are, how soon do we think that we will see an impact of the new system? And what are the risks to the new system if we are unable to address the sickness rate, which at the moment is significant? So what are the consequences if we cannot work with the unions to reduce sickness to this new way of working?
Thanks, Kirsty. Mike?
Okay, how soon the impact? Again, we already started the recruitment process. So what is fundamental is making sure that we have sufficient numbers in the system to make this viable and to make it work. So the first step is almost going to be a phased approach. Start with the recruitment process, get our numbers up to the required 644 before we then recruit again for the 656. We need to look at the shifts owed and looking at buying back the shifts. And it's when we can get the new transferees into service. So that process is complete, but most individuals will need to give 3 months notice. So we're looking at the soonest, I would have thought, around November.
And the likelihood is we're going to have to go back out for the transfer list due to the numbers required for the retirement profile as well, because we have run, and big thank you to Alison's team, a very robust transfer process that's been involved with interviews and ensuring those individuals meet the values of service advisors just because they work in another fire and rescue service. You know, so it's been a very robust process, and the likelihood is we're going to be required to go back out for another transfer process, but I am discussing that with Lisa next week as well. So that's positive, but Mike is right. I think managing expectations, we're not likely to see any of these individuals arrive much before November because of the notice period which they have to give.
Chief?
Just an additional point that that I think is important to understand here. This service has had a bit of a history of not having gaps in the front line, because when a project needs to be developed, somebody gets temporarily promoted, comes into their quarters, runs a project. That means that somebody else gets temporarily promoted in the front line, leaving a gap at the bottom. We're altering our way of doing that, and that's why we've gone out for the first transfer process for 14 firefighters, I think it was.
It was, Chief, yeah. And I think the key thing as well with that transferee process, it allows us to bring individuals in the skill sets we require. So, for example, drivers. We know there's a national issue with drivers. We're able to manage that within the organisation and to bolster the skill sets at the front line, as well as the recruits course.
But going back to Kirsty's question, realistically then, we're not going to see much change before the end of this year.
No, and that's
obviously phasing implementation, we'll be working through it, but I think from what we're saying, it's going to be towards the end of this year. Is that about right?
Yeah. Implementation, yes.
Yeah. Yes.
And again, that would be compounded. Sorry, Kurt, that sickness level still has to come down for it to be effective in the front line.
I was just going to come to that. If you look at the actual sickness, this is a numbers game. It's almost maths in terms of how effective this will be based on those numbers, and we've done that planning. And to make it effective, you need the 6% sickness. If you don't get the 6% sickness, it will affect the service in terms of riding optimum, which is your 120, and your ability to take PHs. So we all collectively have got a vested interest to bring that number down.
Thank you, Mike. Adam, I saw your hand go up before I bring in Lady Wilcox, and then then Vidge, and then Lady Wilcox.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I certainly support Mike's previous point around no crewing model will support levels of sickness that we've seen recently. So that clearly is a separate piece of work that's ongoing. I just wanted to go back to a point that Matt made in relation to the recruitment process. So yes, there is clearly a need to bring more people into the organisation at the moment, particularly with certain skill sets. Driving is always going to be an issue, but reassurance for the commissioners, really, we will not allow our values-based recruitment standard to be lowered. We will make sure that we, you know, however quickly we need these individuals, we will make sure that values remain at the heart of our recruitment. We'll bring the right people into this organisation to make sure they lead for the future. So I just wanted to kind of pick up on that point and make a real kind of a statement that we won't compromise our values-led recruitment in order to get people in. We will make sure we put that first. Thank you.
And I am seeing loads of nods around the table and online to support you in that one. And having seen in organisations that haven't done that before and then played the legacy risk of it for many, many years, I absolutely got to be the right thing to do. Bitch, and then Lady Wilcox.
Right, so I've got a number of points. Starting with the last bit first. When it comes to the sickness, I mean, we are on the naughty step of all fire and rescue services in the country, aren't we? We are the worst performer. And we're talking about a 50% reduction in sickness. If we were to give you any other targets on anything that says you need to cut this by 50%, you'd be up in arms. But that's what we're looking to do here. So it's the magnitude of the task that's being presented with doing that. The riding at 5, that's an aspirational, not a definite, isn't it? Because so if you go down to 4, in certain cases you can put it up with overtime, but you can't continually put it up with overtime if you're always going down to it. So you've got guide rails on this, haven't you? That we don't continually just put it, otherwise we end up back where we were. If people go off sick, then we're pumping it up with overtime. Because a lot of brigades do ride with 4, I understand the aspiration for 5, but they ride with 4, and the number of brigades ride with 3. So there is stretch in all of that. This one's maybe a bit about semantics. We have the red, white, blue and green watches, don't we? And they work 224, those things. So is it a reinstatement? This is semantics. Is it a reinstatement of the 224? Because it already exists.
It does, yeah.
It does already exist.
So it's a restatement of the principles, but it's not a reinstatement, because a reinstatement would mean that we're taking it away. That's why I got confused when I read it. 224 has always been there.
224 is your days, your nights,
Yes.
your rota days. It is, I think the key is, yes, as you mentioned, semantics. It is about removing the flexible duty system.
Yeah.
And just returning to a traditional
224
in the sense that you manage each watch.
Yes, by the
By
way.
just that watch. Flexible roster and you're going across watches.
Yes, yeah.
So in terms of that.
Because I just read it and I thought, doesn't mean we haven't got the 224, but we have got the 224, haven't we?
Can I just come back to your one point and the point you made around the 4, the item 4?
Yeah.
This proposal, we pretty much need the 6 to make it work. But if you look at the 120, which is the optimum figure, no overtime will be paid unless you drop below 100.
Yeah.
So that requires that
Okay.
so many of those structures to be under resourced.
I think there's you've got guide rails on the CDL because that was a sticking point before. Because, you know, want to make sure that that is proportionally managed rather than, you know, that it's that we go back to where we were before.
Absolutely. I think we're looking at all abstraction levels.
Good.
Sickness is one of those, but also we're looking at training courses, common CDL, and we reduce CDL allowance from 5 to 2. But also taking into account that someone may have an urgent issue, they can take their own time. So making sure that they are available should they need to be, they just take
signed off by the duty PO on the thing. Right. One brief points then. I think there's a broader thing about societal change in Gen Z. So people generally aren't going for jobs for the 30 or 40 years. They're going into transitional things. They do 5 or 6 years. I always want to be a firefighter. I've done it for 5 or 6 years. I'm leaving. And on costs because they're worked into the on costs, aren't they, at 56,000. We will probably be seeing in the future more recruitment drives for what would be the life of a firefighter, i.e. 40 years. You probably, instead of getting one person for 40 years, you might get 4 or 5 slots. So there's an additional cost put in there. Speaking of costs, I know we're doing it in reserves for the first bit, but it's a cost pressure on the budget going forward, isn't it, of 700,000?
Yes, yeah, it's, I think, as part of budget setting for next year, we need to consider the impact of that against wider organisational objectives and how we can set an achievable and reasonable budget for next year.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Vic. Thanks, Liam and Mike. Lady Wilcox.
Thank you, and thanks to Vig for those points previously, because that really does demonstrate you know, a level of understanding of operational stuff that those of us who are not from a fire services background find more difficult. Just in simple terms, I'm concerned about the 50% drop in sickness, concerned that we'll reach it. You know, I'm concerned that we are, and I'll reiterate, you know, the lowest performing brigade in the UK. It's not Wales, it's the UK in terms of sickness levels. You know, they really are something that needs to be addressed. But how we address it and whether this will work, I remain to be convinced. I hope it does, but I remain to be convinced. And on that trajectory, I would be looking at a 6-month review of this to be put in. You say it's not going to be ready till about November. Well, then we would be looking at reviewing it in May. Because I really, you know, this is such a significant change that will be advantageous for the service and for the people who operate that service. But, you know, it's got to work. And there's got to be a close monitoring of how it works, and an engagement with staff to make sure that it works and that it's seen as a positive thing for all concerned. Thank you.
Thank you, Lady Wilcox. Chief?
Thank you very much for that, Lady Wilcox. In reply, this is part of, so doing this relies on sickness to come down, but it also is part of the sickness problem. And we've got a much broader approach to sickness. For example, we're working hard to get people onto restricted duties rather than just being off sick because they've got social. But they can go off and do various other things like home safety visits and SSRIs, etc. And then on the review, may I suggest, because over the year we have various sickness issues that come and go depending on the time of year. So could we have a check at 6 months, but the review at the year point? Because if we just do it after a 6-month point, particularly after we've just introduced something, I think we could risk making a decision that's a bit too premature.
So I think, funny enough, that's one of my points. And I'm looking at Adam actually with the Continuous Improvement Board. Rather than getting a formal paper to commissioners, could it go through as the operational part of the operational brief into the Continuous Improvement Board as one of the programmes of work? That would probably reduce the demands on you, Mike, around papers, but you can get that continuous overview around performance, around what's going on.
And what would be the outcome of such a review? Would it be, you know, this is a sort of...
So I'm not talking about the review so much. I think the review is absolutely right at the moment in time. I'm talking about the kind of performance of the organisation to track actually where is it going, really more generally, within a more formal review of the programme, either at your 6-month period or your 12-month period. Does that make sense, Adam?
Yeah, it does, Chair. Absolutely. I think that's a really good suggestion. We're certainly in the formative stages at the moment of the Continuous Improvement Board. One of the conversations that we are having is around structuring it in line with the HMI characteristics, so we can keep a broader look on improvement. And I think that would absolutely lend itself to your point, Chair, around making sure that this element can be picked up within operational effectiveness and people as well. So we can take that away and incorporate that. I think it's a good suggestion.
Right, I've got 3 hands. Who's first? Gonna go with Mike because he's closest for me.
Yeah, okay, just to follow up.
This is for half an hour.
I've also implemented local performance indicators, so I've got monthly performance monitoring, which is our monthly performance returns being complete for the stations. Part of those returns, as well as their usual data, they have to feed back on their sickness at a watch-based level, so the station managers are more aware of their sickness levels per station. Following on from that, there's a unitary authority return, which all goes into performance monitoring with bi-monthly reviews taking place. So I'm able to track the sickness on per watch per station to take corrective action, which then feeds into the wider.
Brilliant. Chief?
I'd just like to get to the consequence. What is the consequence of a review? So, and if we agree, we monitor 6 months, a year, right now we have a review. Is one of the consequences that you as commissioners want to have there, okay, the review, if this hasn't worked, that you revert to Flex rostering. Is
That's
that
kind of what my question is going to be, because at the moment, we're asked to approve an increase in the establishment, not an increase in the establishment subject to a review in a year. So it's a finite thing we're doing, isn't it? We could, but we always reserve the right to review anything, anytime, anyway, don't we?
So I'll bring Liam in. I have got a thought, but Liam, go ahead.
Yeah, so that was going to be my point as well. We know we've got an issue with sickness across the service. It's felt more profoundly on operations, clearly. My suggestion would be that we decant the two issues, that we've got a crew model that currently isn't working for us with sickness levels at 6% or at 11.7%. We move into a crew model that we hope will work at 6%, but we know won't work at 11.7%. In fact, the deputy's point earlier, no crew model can be designed to deal with 11.7% sickness. So my suggestion would be decant the two issues. Absolutely, we need to monitor and get a review around sickness, particularly around operations. That's more, if it's not working, what else can we do? Rather than within 12 months' time, let's revert. Firstly, because we'd be making some firefighters redundant if it didn't work. We'd be bringing people in and then making them redundant potentially a year later. But also, we need to give this some breathing space over a long period of time to see what the holistic benefits of this new system would be, rather than just focusing on sickness. Something that we didn't touch on in the paper as well is we talked about 12 additional firefighters supporting people taking their PHs and optimal ridership. We're also supporting that or supplementing that with day duty crewing. So there's around 43 additional firefighters working within headquarter roles, day duty roles, that will be supplementing the crewing model, which will add additional support into it. So yeah, I'm mindful of conflating the two. I think that's going to cause us significant problems down the line, probably with the unions as well.
Right, so
Or like it's just that use of terms. We wouldn't be making anyone redundant, because if you make redundant uniform staff, you have immediate ballot to strike. So
Yeah.
it would be deletion of posts done through natural wastage if we do it. Because redundancy, the terminology is touch paper.
okay, Adam, I'll bring you in and then kind of trying to pull it all together with a hopefully nod and move on. He says
Thanks,
hopefully.
Chair. Mine's only a very quick point just to come in on the back of Liam. I absolutely support that previous point. I think the one thing that South Wales has demonstrated over the years is that flexible rostering is not a concept that works. So the option of reverting to it, I don't think that should be on the table. I think we should be, by all means, review it, and there may be further work to do. But what we have is a case study of that not working. That's why we're in this position to start with. So I completely agree. I think a review is right and proper to do. But the outcome of that review should not be a reversion to something that we know and have spent 6 months, demonstrating the evidence that doesn't work.
So Adam, thank you for that, because that was really helpful. So I think we're talking about assessment of performance through the improvement board. I think the review is how is the programme of work going more broadly, but we are saying around this table we are not going back to flexible rostering. I think that is the bottom line we're drawing. Now, does that mean we might not have to do something else? No, but I don't think we're saying we're going to review and go back to flexible. We might need to review and do something else because it's not working, but that's slightly different really, because we've proven from the work, as Adam's articulated and Mike has, that flexible rostering does not work in this service. That doesn't mean something else wouldn't. So performance through the improvement board, reviews around the progress of the whole programme of work. We'd go through a review of some description, Mike, and we can discuss about what that would look like and what format would come through. And it might be a light touch at 6 months, Amanda, and then something more significant because of the timeline that we talked about. The last 2 points for me, Liam, the funding bit. I know there's lots of asks going to come through for the next year. So the earlier we've got kind of all those asks together, I think it's going to help the chief and you and the commissioners kind of make some decisions. And finally, Alison, around I know we're pushing really actively, aren't we, around the transferees coming in, but making sure our staff are coming from the right places, as in where they live. So we're putting them, feels like if we're going to be looking to recruit another 20 or so, might be a bit of an opportunity, might be. Because that's one of the challenges we've got at the moment, isn't it? Yeah. Fabulous. So I think we're saying Mike's paper, yes. I'm getting nods. So
Can I just add something to that? Just your last comment.
We might not be saying Mike's paper, yes.
This is just the transferee list isn't only people from outside the service. We have people who are in the service in the retained system, for example, who can transfer in as well. They just happen to be retained and then they're all time somewhere else. So I just want to make that.
Yeah, it was a proportion of them, Chief, as well.
Yeah.
It was a high proportion of individuals.
Who are already on that transfer list. So I just want to make that clear because there is a bit of a thought out there like, oh, you're ignoring us in the service and we're not.
Yeah, no, I think so. Yeah, I think, and again, I think that around the kind of comms around that, it's really important, isn't it? Because certainly I've put to people, I know you have as well, that couldn't get into us, even though they are, you know, which is always seems a little bit odd. So
And this gives them that life opportunity.
So, big discussion, Mike. Thank you and others for all the work that has been done on this paper, and that includes FBU representatives. And Adam, I know you've had some of the pain around this as well. So, really good bit of work. It shows we can get social partnership working in the right way to get to the right outcome. And I know we've got a long journey, but well done, and thank you for that. Is everybody happy with that? Fabulous. So we're skipping the next paper 4 now, and we're going to move on to prevention protection governance updates.
Mark, we'll take this one.
You're right, Mark.
Yep, thank you, Chair. So, Commissioners, this paper is brought forward today to update on the governance, structure and delivery arrangements within the Risk Reduction Department, following my appointment to the role of Head of Risk Reduction in February 2026. The purpose of the paper is to seek decision for a number of key changes that provide greater clarity, strengthen accountability, and better align our prevention and protection activity to risk, evidence, and community outcomes. So these include the renaming of the Risk Reduction Department to Prevention and Protection, reframing the previously approved risk-based intervention program strategy as a delivery plan, and adding a RBIP addendum for themed and reactive targeting of our high-risk buildings, and embedding a formal monitoring and oversight arrangements in both teams, prevention and protection, with the purpose of putting these into our published delivery plans. So the value these recommendations have is to provide that greater clarity of the operating model across prevention and protection, and will provide assurance for yourselves as commissioners and support stronger evidence for progress against inspection, audit and wider scrutiny requirements. In summary, the paper is presented for Commissioners' decision so that the Prevention and Protection Department can continue to strengthen our governance, importantly, target our resources to risk, and demonstrate and continue that evidence-based approach to reducing risk in our communities. An example of this, Commissioners, is our recent Q1 performance of the RBIP in protection for this quarter's performance, where the team have pivoted due to a restructure in the team and delivered 333 high-risk audits against our RBIP in Q1 of 2026-27. I welcome any questions. Thank you.
Mark, thank you. Thank you for the overview. Vij?
Just got one observation. I guess it's a general thing about why we bring papers here, because we're expecting it to result in a change. So agree with all the measures you've said. I think it'd be useful to know what, prior to the change, what the baseline levels of performance were, and that not necessarily a report back to here, but that you, as the service head, would know that this particular proposal resulted in X or Y increases or variations in performance. As a general thing, because otherwise, why are we bringing the papers here?
Okay, thank you, Vij.
My advice for this paper to come here. Reason being, it was adding to a document we'd already approved, and so I felt to complete the loop for audit purposes that was important. So I'm to blame for that, but I agree. I think the evidence.
And Mark's question for me: does this bring us more in line, and not that we have to, more in line with what the UK would look like?
Yes, it would, Chair. Certainly regarding naming of the team for prevention protection, that lines up with National Fire Chiefs Council best practice. as well as monitoring and oversight meetings around ensuring we're realising the benefits and having very clear documented plans for when we are inspected again, that they are in our delivery plans, and there's one version of the truth.
Thank you, Mark. And I'm going to bring Kirsty in, but I know there was a discussion when we saw the original paper some time ago around the strategy stroke delivery plan of what actually was it. So that's really helpful. Kirsty.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you to Mark for the paper. Mark, the quarter one performance, is something to recognise and to celebrate. But one swallow doesn't make a summer, as they would say. So I'm just looking for some assurance that you feel that this improvement in performance will be sustainable going forward. We haven't just thrown everything at it, got good stats for this quarter, but things will drift back. So what level of assurance can you give that this improvement will continue?
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner, for the question. Really, for me, it's about getting the foundations right. And having the monitoring and oversight meetings and the management team within prevention and protection is that foundation. What will sustain us realising the benefits for these areas of work.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Kirsty. Lady Wilcox.
Thank you, Chair. Mark, thank you very much for this detailed account of the changes. I'm very pleased to see the sharing of good practice and the engagement much more of middle managers. I think that's a sign that we have put throughout the organisation that, middle managers need to take more account. And in fact, everyone is a leader at whatever level in the organisation. And I think moving this to this way of accounting for it and operating will bring those benefits. So I look forward to seeing even greater improvements in it. And Chair, it would be remiss of me not to be pedantic in your final meeting about spelling and punctuation. So can we make sure that programme is spelt the English way throughout this document and not the American way? So it's PROGRAMME throughout, because it's spelt in two ways in the document, and I'd like the UK version, please. That's my pedantry over, Chair.
Thank you, and always, you never get rid of the teacher. Mark, anything from you finally before I close?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Thank you, Lady Wilcox. It's just also to support, obviously, the performance of what we're talking about today, and the monitoring and oversight will support our continuation with a CRMP. And resourcing to risk as well. So thank you.
Thank you.
Everything's gone on today, Chair. This document as well will be fundamental to some of the changes we're making around the prevention arena, where we are now airing a lot of our conversations at the public service boards and requesting the support from the public service boards to resolve a lot of challenges we're having around engaging with communities, etc., and those hard to reach individuals. And this document, which Mike started and Mark titivated, will go a long way to driving that.
Thank you, Matt. So, for request from us, endorse the renaming of the risk reduction department, renaming the risk-based intervention programme, the risk-based intervention programme 25-25 plan, and endorse it, including the governance arrangements. I think I am getting nods from around the room. It's absolutely the right thing to do. Yeah, fabulous. Mark, very grateful. Mike, previously for you, for the work that's done on this. So really, really positive. So we got flick back a paper, and I'm doing reasonably well. I've got 27 minutes to get through the rest of the agenda. On to the fire control.
Okay, that's me again. Thank you, Chair.
Oh, sorry.
Are we doing the annual remuneration?
Oh, right. So we're going to go through those first, and then do fire control right at the end, are we?
I think so, because then if you do.
Okay. Forget fire control then.
I'm so
As per
sorry.
your announcement earlier.
As per, yeah, I got confused about when the end was. I thought I was doing even better than I thought I was doing. Right. Annual remuneration then.
Chair, I can be very quick. So this is my report. We previously had the draft report of the Democracy and Boundary Commission Wales on new remuneration rates for fire and rescue authority members. So they issued their first draft report in November 2025, and then they issued a final report in February this year, and that report I was going to present to you. But in fact, since then, everything's changed. So on the 3rd of July, they've published a draft supplementary remuneration report with the bespoke topic of fire and rescue authorities. So if I take you to the body of the report, paragraph 4.2, in fact, sorry, starting from 4.1, the increase is as before 6.4% increase to all roles, but in relation to fire and rescue authorities, 4.2. Those rates are to be aligned with the Welsh Government's Band 3 for public bodies, with remuneration to be payable on a daily basis rather than an annual allowance, with provision for half-day and hourly payments. Those figures are set out at table 4. I've taken a screenshot for you there at the top of page 261. So that gives you the amounts that we will be paying our new members. There is no distinction made between new elected members and the new additional members to be appointed by the Welsh Government. They all get the same. This is draft at this stage, so those rates are out for consultation. The closing date is the 14th of August. So if you have any comments for me to take today, please let me know and I will feed those to the system. But otherwise, that's pretty much what we're expecting the rates to be, and that will feature in Liam's budget figures for the budget next year. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Amanda. That's really helpful. I know we've been subject to discussion with Welsh Government officials, colleagues. Is there any questions for Amanda on that? No. Which? Anybody around the room? No. I think if there is any individual comments, absolutely. I think it's certainly been briefed with the Cabinet Minister, although it is still out for consultation and we'll wait to see how that comes through. Obviously, there is a consequence, isn't there, of bringing the two together from appointment to the end of the year, which obviously Liam will have an impact on the budget.
Financial implication for the remainder of this year, certainly, until we transition next year.
Fabulous. Thank you, Amanda. Really helpful. And we'll see if there's any changes after the consultation. Sickness, absence and wellbeing overview.
Thank you, Chair. So I've got 2 members of the team joining, but I'll make a start if that's okay. Because
they're yomping down the corridor, are they?
Yeah. Right. Okay. So it goes without saying that we're not in a good place in terms of our sickness absence levels. This is a key priority for the service. We are ranked in the top 3 of the worst performers in that as regards sickness absence levels, and the national average in this sector is 3.8%. So we've got a long way to go. So you will see that Natalie has surprised me some data in there. What I'm going to do in a minute is ask Nat to give us an updated picture. But what the report does is it shares with you the headlines from the NFCC National Sickness Data Report. You will see we are at the leaderboard. We're certainly at the top in most areas. Hold time particularly and joint fire control are 2 areas of focus for us. So what are we doing to reduce our sickness absence level? So we're taking a multifaceted approach. We know this is a whole system issue, starting with looking at our return to work processes. Our systems are clunky. Forms go back and forth, sometimes they're not signed off. And we'll see in the data that's supplied, there was a large number of return to work discussion returns outstanding. I think that's got an update on that. We're refreshing our layers of audit. So we've introduced now a new sickness committee. We've invited the FBU onto that committee. So we've got representation from the FBU in there. And that kicked off more recently. So that has principal officers chaired by the DEP. The chief is on that committee as well. So we're really sort of looking at a strategic level, but also deep diving into where are the areas that we need to have focus. We're upskilling our managers. We've had an external consultant come in and she is running workshops with our managers so they understand the impact and consequence of not managing sick absence across the organisation. We had a really good workshop with our group managers recently where we went back to basics in terms of our policy. What's in the policy? What are we doing? What are we not doing? Where can we unlock, activity for our group managers and their managers? We've also commissioned Professor Rowena Hill. She's an expert in the field of occupational health. So she has been into the organisation. She's done a review and we're expecting the report early next week. So we will see a draft of her review of our wellbeing offer, including occupational health, our policies, procedures. So we will see what she's got to say about us early next week. And we will continue to bring this subject back into the committee so that we can continue that scrutiny. So we will be able to pull that through to our governance structure in terms of are we making a shift or not. I guess the figures are the figures, but Nat, do you want to give us a quick update on where we are currently?
Yes, so last financial year wasn't great for us. The sickness was quite significant. But if we look at Q1 of this financial year compared to last year's Q1, we have seen a significant reduction in our sickness absence. So April of this year, there was 2,305 shifts lost, where last year there was just over 2,900. May of this year, there was 2,286 shifts lost. Last May, there was over 3,000 shifts lost. And then most recently, the June sickness, there was 2,390 shifts lost this June compared to 2,950 last June. So whilst they're still not great, we have a reduction compared to last financial year. Obviously, Alison touched on the return to work interviews. We've done a bit of work with our managers. So after the group manager workshop, they actually went out and spoke to the managers to make sure they got a return to work interviews done. So we have seen a significant reduction. So May there was 163 outstanding return to works, and in June we now have 63. So there's quite a lot of work done. My colleague Sarah, she's also done some work around the return to work interview form. So like I alluded to, the form is quite clunky. There's 3 steps to the form. We are now in a position where the return to work form will be completed within the HR system. So it will take away that clunkiness and hopefully streamline that return to work process. And we're also creating toolkits for line managers to support them in how to conduct a return to work interview. Mental health and musculoskeletal remain our top 2 sickness absence reasons across the service. But again, what we are trying to do with the support of our OC health colleagues and our managers is to try and get people back in work, get them in on restricted duties or modified duties if they're unable to fulfil the requirements of these substantive roles. We know there's work for them to be able to do, so we are looking to get them back into the workplace and complete other work if they're not able to do anything in the actual role. I think Al alluded to it as well, obviously the NFCC, we still are waiting for Q1 for the NFCC report of this year to see where we are. I'm not predicting if there's much difference to Q4. The whole time shifts lost have remained stagnant at 8%. Through the last Q4 to the last financial year. It's looking at that, there's remaining the same throughout this quarter of this financial year as well. So unless there's been a shift in other services, but I'm expecting that we are going to remain quite stagnant in that NFCC report.
Thanks, Natalie, that's really helpful. And as much as I'm quite happy to wish for other services to get worse, we really just need to improve ourselves, don't we, really? Yeah. Thank you. Anything else?
No, I think that's as much as I wanted to say. It's a burning platform for us and a key priority.
Rich?
I suppose it's just something that's really dawning on me as I've been in the meeting. So we've got, one of the earlier things on the whole, the WDS was all about, if we implement this, we can reduce sickness. This paper doesn't mention the WDS proposals at all. It sees the solution to sickness in terms of processes and compliance. So is our approach both, or because we've got one paper saying a real driver towards it is changing the accruing system. We've got this paper saying it's about the implementation of policies.
But, yeah.
It's a combination of both.
Yeah.
It is, yeah. We haven't drawn the two papers together.
But the work is being done in the background. So
Yeah.
the work is been implemented to look at our current procedures. And that's where we're bringing together that sickness working group. We're scrutinising on monthly returns as well, so we're identifying where those areas are. And we're ensuring that triggers where they're met are dealt with as well. So if someone's got 3 periods of sickness, that it's been dealt with.
Thank you, Mike. Chief, did you?
Yeah, no, I mean, there are all sorts of aspects driving into all of this things. One of the things that we're looking at in the promotion process is within the reporting, I think we're putting it in the PR, aren't we, I think, Al, is to now start looking at individuals who are leaders should be managing their sickness levels, along with many other things they should be doing, and then actually making sure that you've got incontrovertible things that you have in your promotion process that are metrics that we can start looking at people and going, what was your performance like as a leader? Avoiding, by the way, having things which are not incontrovertible. So we can't be accused of unfair processes by people writing a report. So we're going to have a bunch of metrics that leaders must make sure that they're meeting. So this is a middle leaders issue. It's our issue. Together we need to be driving this, and this is a big piece of work, and this is one of the things right at the top of my list.
Natalie, thank you. Al, thank you. I think what it reinforces, doesn't it, as we just talked about there, it is a proper whole system approach and it's a proper service-wide approach. We've got ourselves into a bad place with it, really, and we need to kind of work the whole organisation out of a bad place by getting some of the basic process systems in place and leadership culture basis. And the consequences piece as well, isn't it? Because it's a stick and carrot. We'll give everybody the best possible support, but if you don't want to be here, there is a consequence, isn't there, as well? So I think that whole piece there, and that was really helpful, kind of getting that over it. And we definitely don't want to be at the top of the tree. There's things we do, this is not one of them, is it, really? So thank you for your help today. That's really helpful. Thank you. Really appreciate it. Amanda, forward work plan?
Yeah, Chair, the detail's not in here because it's yet to be got through, but we have got another additional Board of Commissioners meeting fixed, I think, for the 18th of September. And the reason we scheduled that already is to look at the CRMP work that's coming. So that's still in the diary at the moment. I will work closely with Martin about whether that date needs to be adjusted at all, but at the moment, that's the next big ticket item of the hours as well.
Yeah. And just as a very quick update on that, I think certainly by the end of August, we will have done all the analysis required to be able to write up something that is a first draft that we can then begin engagement and consultation.
Thank you, Martin. That's really helpful. And I know we're genuinely really excited about what it'll look like.
We've had a bit of a teaser, I think, in terms of the work today, and we'll look to get some informal timing with commissioners so that you're sort of brought up to speed before the 18th. But I think the methodology that's been used and obviously the quality of analysis that's taken place, has been great as well. And we've also been testing this with partner agencies as well by sort of bringing them in and sharing that data as sort of critical friends with the service.
And Martin and I spoke yesterday, commissioners, and I suggested that maybe a informal briefing with commissioners to bring them up to say, to talk through some of the journey that the team been on in CRMP before coming into the formal meeting structure would probably aid the discussion and the debate. So Martin, you're going to work with probably me around the diary slot on the back of that, if that's okay for everybody. Yep, I'm getting nods. Thank you. Thank you, Martin. Okay, Amanda.
Yes, absolutely fine.
Fabulous.
And then on the joint fire control paper, just a reminder to everyone, the paper itself, I think, there's no information there that can't be discussed in open forum. Just if commissioners have any questions or want to delve into the appendices,
Then I'll
need
stop
to
at that
vote on going into.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm gonna, before we do the paper, then I'm just gonna do AOB first of all. I've got one notified AOB, who did tell me I've got an AOB. Is there any else got any AOB before we go and do the fire control paper, and then we can flick into the close if we need to?
So my idea is at the close of the meeting.
Okay, that's fine. We'll do that when we're closed.
I've got an update, which is Guy's figures as of today are they were reported 35%, they're now 58%. So
Excellent.
We've gone up by 23%.
Thanks, John. I did notice a bit of paper going around there and then go back again. So yeah, thank you for that. That's really helpful. Right, let's do the fire control paper with that caveat that Amanda just talked about. If we do need to discuss anything that's in the exam paper.
Okay, I'll commence with this. Almost going back to the history of joint fire control. Prior to moving into South Wales Police HQ, we used to have a dedicated control room in the Potts team, and we've always had a dedicated control room. But the merger that took place was between South Wales Fire and Rescue Service, Middle West Wales Fire and Rescue Service, and South Wales Police. So we merged our control rooms with the basis that we can then have further resilience, improved collaboration, so you're able then, if you need the police, you can look up, be in direct contact with the FIN. So that was on the basis of our current demand. So you're going back to 2017. If you go to control, I'm sure a lot of you have been in control, the demand, and both for the police and for the fire and rescue service, has changed. And that's from 999 calls, 101, etc. And where they're currently located within that control, it creates quite a difficult working environment for them, with their contact with their line managers who have that overview. Ideally, you want a horseshoe configuration. The configuration isn't quite there. And also the noise, lighting, and all those other particular issues do play a part. Adding to that is the command room. Command room is shared with the police. So it does create difficulties that if you have two major incidents ongoing at the same time, you may then be removed from that room, which makes managing an incident really difficult. And I'm talking about totally separate major incidents. So it has been really demanding. There's further issues in terms of rest and recuperation. So their current arrangements aren't ideal. And I think all that together has led to quite a transient workforce in control. So over the years, the throughput of fire control operators has been quite significant as well. So there's issues which has brought us to a place where we are continually having bronze, silver, gold meetings to identify any issues. Apologies, my phone was going on duty AM and just checking who it was. So we are trying to iron out those issues, but I think it got to a stage where it's recognizing the fact that we can't iron out all these issues in our current arrangements. So this led to a meeting where it was discussed go level, that due to the demands placed upon us, due to the review carried out by Dan Stevens and the other inquiries which are ongoing, which are almost stipulating what the future demands are for fire control, for a modern fire control room, that we needed to look at alternative solutions. So that led to a forensic analysis of what is required. And it isn't a wish list, it is a requirement based on legislation, based on Manchester Arena, based on Grenfell, and also your most recent Dan Stevens review of fire control. So that led to a forensic analysis document being sent then to the Chief Constable. In the meetings, what he wanted was an analysis that he could look at to see if he could then fulfill our requirements. And the letters included within the report where, due to the requirements that we need, they cannot fulfill the requirements under the current arrangements. Because again, if you look at training rooms, command rooms, rest facilities, we would need quite a lot of infrastructure, etc. So the report is asking for, and it is only asking for, at this present moment in time, the permission to move to an exit business case. It's not committing to any more than that. The exit business case will then inform us of our future direction. So it'll provide the evidence base that you need to make future decision making. We are continuing to work closely with Middle West Wales Fire and Rescue Service and also South Wales Police, and ensuring that the mechanisms are in place that we're feeding back to all parties who are concerned, and there are multiple parties, including Chief Fire Officer, Chief Constables, Welsh Government, Police Crime Commissioner, yourselves as Commissioners, and Middle West Wales, the Fire Authority. So it's ensuring that we do this properly, we do it in a legal, compliant way to ensure that when we arrive at that exit business case, everyone's able to make that informed decision. I think Lewis, if you like any questions.
Thank you, Mike. Very helpful and very clear around the journey that has been gone through. So questions then, if I look to the screen, anything for Mike on the ask? And we've got to be very clear about the ask here, haven't we? For the minutes, and I'll cover that at the end. So no, Vic, anything for you?
That was my point, is that we're not being asked to put it all in here now, we're talking about business case to exit.
So just one question or two questions for me, really, before we do, because it's around governance. Where do you see the governance of what is a really important piece of work, isn't it? Especially with the partnership arrangements, and you know, it is a core part of our business, isn't it? Where do you see the governance going, Mike, around that one? To see, is it the improvement board? Is it something else? And the second question is resources to do this piece of work with the right skill set.
Okay, again, if we look at the exit business case, it's a legal document as well, so it'll be drawn up by solicitors. We haven't had the agreement where
this afternoon, Jay. Meeting this afternoon, to hear out some of those conversations with Middle West, because again, you want to be aligned with the conversations we're having around the exit, the proposals of an exit business case, around the technology, the requirements, and that will build the requirement of a project team. Yeah. Because again, however that looks, then collaboratively developing that project team, which will require resource, which we've touched on briefly with Liam as well. So it's having those conversations, but more will come out of this afternoon's conversation regarding that.
So we're probably going to have to bring that particular question or ask back, aren't we, to some forum, which, bear in mind, it might need to be improvement board or something like that to sign off that agreement. And just around that internal, we've got the external governance then, around the partnerships there. What about that internal governance then, Matt? What are you looking at there?
So again, for us, it would probably sit with the continuous improvement board regarding that, because that's where I would see that going. Because this is, and also this would be a significant programme for the PMO as well. It would sit as part of that. I have already started those conversations with Anne-Marie as well. Mike has already added it to the list, so working through that, but now we need to add the detail for it as part of that then.
And it's already down in the
it is, yes.
So that is all.
Yeah. And just personal view, PMO got a huge amount of capacity. It might be something you need to bring in, somebody who's got the right skill set around this type of work, but that's a question for the organisation to have a think about, because I think it's a complex area, isn't it, really, that we all think we know really well.
We see that project team probably growing and shrinking to the requirement of which phase they're at of that business case as well.
Right, so going to the approvals about what we've been asked for, just so I don't find Mike's moved the whole of the contact centre out of South Wales, and it's got it downstairs in the canteen. So we're looking to approve the progression to develop the exit business case, authorise officers to work with Middle Wales, West Wales and South Wales Police, and solely to develop the exit business case. Are we comfortable to sign that off at the moment in time, with some caveats of what needs to come back around resourcing, some of the governance arrangements, etc., that needs to be there? Lady Wilcox, see you nodding. Vig, happy with that? Mike, thank you for that. Really good bit of work. I don't think we need to go to the exempt section. I think it's really helpful context, but there's nothing in there that we need to talk about. Happy with that? And obviously, with the comms, feels like it's going to be massive, doesn't it? Fabulous. Okay, so flicking forward and backwards then. So I think I'm at AOB. I'm at AOB. Oh, I'm getting nods. Thank goodness that. With 1 minute to go.
Right, there you go. Okay, so I've been asked to say a few words.
Which is a good job. You're feeling well.
Yeah. So thank you and goodbye. Actually, I'm quite enjoying this. I know inwardly you're cringing at the thought of anybody speaking on your behalf. But I'd like to thank Carl for all he has done for South Wales Fire and Rescue Service in general, but also for us as commissioners in particular. In all of his dealings, he has shown kindness, empathy and understanding. But one can always sense the quiet, steely resolve of former Chief Constable. Public service brings considerable challenges. But more importantly, it brings the opportunity to deliver meaningful public benefit. This sometimes requires difficult decisions and can only be properly done with a passionate and dedicated commitment to both staff and communities. Carl embodies all of this ethos, and in my opinion, and I'm sure on behalf of the Commissioners, he is an example of a living embodiment of the Nolan principles. You've been both a great supporter and ambassador for the service. You're a valued colleague and friend for many, if not all, in this room and on screen. Nearly finished now. It just remains to wish you and Penny good health and all the best for the future as you cycle, swim and run into the sunset. Well done.
Thanks, Vic. So I tried to get out the last place by legging it out the back door, and they caught me before I could go. So yeah, I think I'm sure putting the meeting in today was a deliberate one, but I said at the start, it's been fabulous. I've thoroughly enjoyed working with you all, and thank you for the very kind words. It is genuinely, really appreciated, and it has been a pleasure. It has been a pleasure. And I think I finished my last meeting on time.
And I think we need to take a quick photograph.
Travel one car.
I'm not putting my jacket on, it's too hot.
Oh, thank you. Cheers. Let's have a think about the table. Can we clear the table and cut some water?
Yes, please. Yeah. Thank you, Scott.
Could we, before the meeting ends,